your pension fund. It's time that we took to the streets. It's time we had our turn. A revolution is on its way, and the founding fathers would say, buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Buy a gun, 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 buy a gun before you wish you bought a gun. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta riot in the streets. Revolution's not clean and neat, you gotta drag them through the streets.
Ladies and gentlemen, primer time. This is Michael.
Hey, and I'm Dan. How you doing, Michael?
Dan, good to hear you. How was special assignment?
It was terrific. Nice and peaceful and a lot of work. But it was very fun. Gotta say that.
Usually if it's worth something, it is a lot of work.
That's a fact. That's a fact. Did you get to do any shooting this week?
I did. I got to pop off 75 rounds of 22. I just grabbed a rifle and loaded 3 magazines and ran out there and went to my favorite spot, the dump, and there was some new and unusual trash that needed blasting. So
1022. What were you shooting? 1022 or what?
Actually, I was shooting an HK. Believe it or not, HK makes a replica MP5 and 22 long rifle, and
the GSG, right?
No, it is not a GSG.
No,
This is actual Heckler and Koch. Heckler and Koch is stamped into it, and it's actually Heckler and Koch made by Carl Walter.
Oh, okay.
GSG is a completely different.
It's made by
different organization. It's imported by American Tactical. I believe it's German Sport Group is the company, and there's a world of difference in the two because I used to own a GSG5, and it had pretty much the exact and external features and look of the MP5. When it came to the most important part, which is the maintenance of the weapon, it was not anything like an MP5. You actually had to get screwdrivers out to take it apart.
It just come apart in pieces for you. Yeah.
Well, it did not just flop open into easily cleanable sections. This one does. This HK, I believe it's a HK MP5 A522 is its designation. And say again.
What's the cost on that thing?
This was a trade. What? I made a trade straight across for a Ruger Single 6 new model. I would say it was production was within the last 10 years. That's a single action pistol. It also had the 22 Magnum conversion cylinder, and it was a straight across trade.
Oh, okay. So, what's the value of it? If I wanted to go buy a new one of these H&Ks, how much would I have to pay for one?
I'm thinking you'd probably be looking at least $500 at a store.
Okay, that's close to the GSG.
I've seen the GSG as low as $315.
Well, when they first came out.
No, when they first came out, they were a pretty penny. But GSG also diversified, and they've made several different 22 replica rifles. They make an AK-47 replica that's spot on, same weight, same placement of controls, everything. It's just in 22. They make STG-44. That's really a neat looking deal and historically accurate and correct. But these are not they're not combat weapons or anything. They're not and they're not really serious quality long term. I believe that they probably have a 5,000 round lifespan, and this HK is completely different than that. Really, to take it apart, pop 2 pins out, and it flops open, and everything's readily accessible. You don't need any tools to take it apart.
That's one thing I love about all HK weapons. They're so simple to take apart. They are the high-end high-end weapons, so you've got to have a lot of cash to own those weapons.
I know that I would not be able to afford an HK MP5 in 9mm. I believe even the one with the 16-inch barrel on it is right about $3,500. And an SP89, which is the pistol version of it, is out of sight. Those are $5,000 if you can find one.
That's unbelievable. Just think of all the ammo and say you buy 145. I think all the 45 ammo you could buy to shoot up with that for the price of one of those rifles.
Right, right.
It's just not. It doesn't make any sense to me. Less money is no object.
Well, money is the object, and I made a trade. There was no cash out of my pocket other than what it took me to get to the meeting place, which was about 50 miles from my house.
And we're talking
about half.
We're talking 22s, so the 22s are coming back in this area, not at the Walmarts yet, but they're coming back in the gun shops and stuff like that. $45 for a 550 round box, so it's under 10 cents a round now. They finally got it under 10 cents a round. How about in your area?
I'm seeing for the 500 round box, which is available at the big box store still with the 3-box limit. And although if you do buy a brick, you're limited to 1 brick at a time. If they're 50 round or 100 round boxes, you can buy 3. They have it, and they're starting to have it on a fairly regular basis. Walmart has had it, but Walmart seems to get cleared out whenever it is, whenever it's on the shelf there. Walmart has also lifted their 3-box limit, or it was a 2-box limit, I believe, at Walmart, and that's no longer in effect in the one in my area. So I must do that. There's a ready supply coming.
So you can go clean the shelves out if you want to.
Well, that's already happening. A couple of boards that I keep an eyeball on, people are advertising they had 22 like it was 7 months ago, and they're trying to get 7 months ago prices. And something else, right? It's not going to happen. If you bought it 7 months ago at 23 cents a round, you're eating it. Go out and shoot it. That's the only thing you can do with it.
You know, I've always said that about these ammo shortages. Of course, it always goes up, and in the end, it goes up some. But I've seen this 3 times now, and every time the ammo comes back, slowly it comes back, and before you know it, it's back close to the original price it was before it went out of sight. But it's always up a little more. You know, what's 9mm right now, or 35 cents a round, something like that.
Yeah, it's looking at about $11, $12 a box. It's no longer the $9.99 a box, or the $7.99 a box, or even $5.99.
But it's
hell, man, I remember buying the Chinese Norinco ammo, the stuff that looked like it looked like it had a brass bullet. It was a copper. It was a full metal jacket, 115 grain, but the bullet had a brass tinge to it that matched the case. I remember
it was all copper bullet, correct? The Norincos.
Yeah, it looked like it had a brass coating on it, or like it was like plated in brass or something. But it was a copper, a lead bullet with a copper jacket that had that brass electroblading on it, or whatever.
I thought it was a steel bullet with a copper plating on it, or whatever.
The
whole bullet's the same color.
Yeah, the whole bullet was the same color, and I remember buying that for $3.99 a box, and sometimes $2.99 when it was on sale. You know, for a box. Those days are long gone.
And that's big caliber too. That's a shame. Those prices are no longer. They never will come back down like that, I'm sure. So.
No, those were the salad days. So anyhow, I got to shoot a little bit. Some brand new trash needed holes in it, and I popped off about 75 rounds, 3 magazines through that MP5, and then came home. I was pretty happy. I ripped apart a 5-gallon bucket from about 40 yards into pretty good sized Swiss cheese. So
pretty accurate firearm there.
Yeah, the rear sight is just like a real HK sight. It's a rotating aperture, and it's got 4 different view fields. And on the tightest view, yeah, I was putting it in that little center circle on the bucket. on the bottom of the bucket from about 40 yards.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. What kind of ammo were you using?
I splurged and I blew a box and a half of CCI Stingers. Just because this rifle does call for a high velocity ammo, but I just know that a CCI Stinger always works. And,
they do work good. I'm a fan of Stingers for sure. But, you know, every 22 rifle likes a different kind of ammo for some reason or another. It's strange.
Some rifles don't like Stingers.
That's true. They are just a tad longer than the ordinary 22 long rifle cartridge. That's one thing, but they got high velocity to them, and they keep a nice flat trajectory for 100 yards anyway. So.
Right, and they move at 1640 feet per second, and they're 32 grain, and Mini-Mag moves a little bit slower and is a full 40 grains. So I don't know, take your pick. I just knew that stuff was going to work, and I just didn't want to deal with any failures to feed at that time. I just wanted to go out and shoot and have a nice time for about 20 minutes.
Well, that's great. That's great you got to shoot. That's I get to step out on my porch and shoot. I love that. Don't have to go anywhere.
I can't. I've got a school out my back door. I can't do that.
Well, you could, but not for very long, I don't think.
Yeah. We talk about it would no longer be PrimerTime. It would be CNN.
Well, as long as you have a sign that says UCY.tv, that should be all right.
Yeah, and then they pour through every episode on YouTube, which kind of brings us to Santa Barbara.
Yeah, tell me about that. I've been out of the loop on this shooter guy here. What I heard about him, and he put some YouTube videos out and then shot up a place.
Well, he not only shot up a place, and this is what the media is focusing on, but he did use a knife, and he stabbed 3 people to death prior to the shooting rampage, and I believe there was some accident with the vehicle and all that, and of course, just like everything, crisis actors and all that, I don't want to deal with any of that. That's not my concern. My concern is how firearms are portrayed in this.
So he stabbed 3 people initially, and then went and shot up the sorority house. That's what he did.
I believe he shot up a sorority house, and he shot up a mini market.
What kind of firearm was he using? Do you know? Or
he was using 2 SIG 226s and a Glock 34.
9mm.
Yeah, all 9mm. The Glock 34 is a long slide version of the 17.
That's the most accurate. That's the one used in pistol competitions, IDPAs and stuff like that.
Right. It's what is that? It's a 6.5-inch barrel on it. It's a good sized barrel.
No, it's about a 5-inch barrel.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, it's about a 5-inch barrel, and it's got the slide is grooved in the top of it. I don't know how to describe it. It's just got some slots on the top of it.
If people want to see it, it's a Glock 34. Check it out online. Well, anyways, this kid had a Glock 34, and he had 2 SIG 226s, which are fine weapons in their own right.
Yeah, very nice guns.
This is California, so he had 10-round magazines, but he had 42 10-round magazines in total.
42 10-round magazines? You're shitting me. 420 rounds.
That's right. In California's 10-round world.
So
he had 10 magazines for the Glock, and he had 32 magazines for the SIGs.
Wow.
Now, I don't know where a magazine ban affects that. So let's say limit magazines to 2 rounds apiece. You know, whatever. They're going to do what they're going to do.
That is unreal. So now wait a minute. And he only killed 6 people with the firearm with that many rounds, or what's?
No, he shot 3. He shot 3, and the police are saying, or the news and police, everybody says that he fired 42 rounds. So he had a 100% kill ratio with his knife, and well, he shot like the A-team with the pistols.
That is wild, and he actually got on there and said that he was going to go.
That's right. He made many YouTube videos. Where's all our vaunted spying at? Where's the real time monitoring of my metadata? Where did that come in to stop this kid? It didn't.
Yeah, where's the NSA when you need them? Isn't that why they're gathering all this data so they can sift through it and stop?
It didn't work, and immediately, like you asked when we started this discussion, he was the shooter. Well, why isn't he the stabber? It's the media playing on the knee-jerk reaction again, the flashy headline. One of the unfortunate children's fathers immediately came out and said it was craven politicians in the NRA. Well, the NRA had nothing to do with this. California is the most highly regulated state. Well, used to be. I guess New York's the most highly regulated now. But how did this happen? People are going to do it no matter how. He used a handgun for 3 murders, but he used a knife for 3 murders. And he drove his BMW like a maniac. He's a 22-year-old kid in school. Who pays for these? Now, how much is a Glock 34, Dan? That's probably about $600.
Right at it. That's correct.
And a 226, probably going to be $650.
Somewhere in that neighborhood. That's correct. Yeah, they're not inexpensive firearms by any means.
So now we're looking at $2,000 in guns, and now we got to buy 42 magazines
at probably what, $30 a piece, something like that.
I have $40 a piece for a magazine.
So you're looking at over $1,000 worth of just magazines alone.
Yeah, that's right. We're looking at about $1,500-$1,600 worth of magazines. So we're into this for $3,500. And the kid drove a BMW M3 that wasn't too old. So my question is number one, he's 22 years old. Who the hell is paying for this? His parents.
And his dad was some movie producer or something like that?
Yeah, something like that. He's some assistant director for the Hunger Games or something. To be honest with you, I haven't seen the movies. They don't. Interest. But
I've heard of the Hunger Games. That's a popular movie, I'm sure. But that's his dad wasn't even the main guy in the Hunger Games or whatever.
No, I think
main producer or anything.
No, it was a secondary director. Like an assistant director.
Oh, okay. That's plumb weird that he posted all this stuff on YouTube, yet no one could stop him or whatever. I don't understand that.
Well, and the police had visited him 3 or 4 days prior to this.
They had visited him 3 or 4 days prior to him doing the shooting?
Absolutely.
And nothing was out of the ordinary. He pulled a Jeffrey Dahmer on him then, I guess.
That's right. Give me my little boy back and everything will be fine.
That is incredible.
But it's interesting that this is the attention-grabbing headline of the last week. And, once again, Chicago being Chicago does its thing. Its violent crime rate is through the roof. And over the weekend, the same weekend that this happened, that all the media is paying attention to this because, hey, this is perfect. This is ready-made. I mean, the kid's dad is a director. The kid's videos were almost like he was making his own movie. It was, it was just too perfect for television. But in the same span of time, you've got Chicago, in the middle of another war. I think there was 8 killed over the weekend in Chicago. Didn't hear a damn thing about that. And Chicago's got worse laws than, the city of Chicago's got worse laws than the entire state of California.
Exactly. Why is the media ignoring Chicago? That's let's hear this guy talk for just a minute, Michael, if you don't care. It's like 2 minutes and 50 seconds.
Yeah. Let's point that out. Yeah, let's hear it.
Okay, just a second here.
gunslives.net here. Wanted to make a quick video before the weekend got here, and we're going to talk about Chicago today. As you may or may not have heard, last weekend, Easter weekend, there were over 40 people shot in Chicago, just in that one weekend alone. A couple weekends before that, there were over 30 people shot in one weekend, which was the first warm weekend they had since the winter kind of broke. So what I want to talk about is, why is the media, the national media that is, not talking about this? If 30 or 40 people were shot in one incident by a guy with an AR-15, it would make national news. It would be on CNN 24/7 for probably like CNN's reporting lately. And that's all we hear about. We'd see pushes for new gun legislation. We would see new groups being formed. We would see commercials. We would see politicians getting on TV. The president would probably make a speech. But because it's in the inner city of Chicago, same number of people, we hear absolutely nothing about it. So all of these people that keep wanting to regulate AR-15s and AK-47 style rifles and things like that are completely ignoring the fact that most crime is committed in inner cities, often gang-on-gang related crime, and often with small concealable handguns. So that's the real problem, and it's not the guns themselves, of course, but it's this culture of violence and gang violence and things like that. But that doesn't fit the national media's agenda, so they're going to compete for that, and we're not going to talk about how every weekend for the rest of the summer, I'm predicting, we're going to have between 30 and 50 people shot in Chicago, which, by the way, it should also be mentioned that up until about a year ago, the strictest gun laws in the country, they had a complete ban on the selling of firearms within the city limits, and I believe a court recently overturned that, but I don't think any gun shops have actually opened in Chicago yet, so you still can't buy a gun in Chicago. Up until just a few months ago, they had a registry on guns if you lived in Chicago, their own registry, not a state registry, the city registry. Fortunately, that was the city council got rid of that just a few months ago, but we haven't really seen any of these pro-gun changes that have been able to affect the crime rate in Chicago yet, which I think that we will see in the future, especially as Illinois' concealed carry program gets rolled out more in the next couple of years. Ignore a situation where 30 people were shot in a small area in one weekend when one person with a rifle does something. We hear about it 24/7 for literally weeks and weeks. I'll just leave you with that thought. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
How about that, Michael? It's typical, isn't it?
It is, and it took him a while to get to the main point of that, which was all these shootings, all these massive, just ongoing crime sprees go in areas that are gun-free zones, or they have restrictive laws on firearms carry. Tell you what, you open up that concealed weapon and crime drops. That's just the way. That's just a fact.
You know, it's amazing, isn't it? It's been proven time and time again. Yet, why does it not get through to people? I really don't understand.
Well,
the media is so anti-gun. Every story is slanted towards the anti-gun end of it. It seems like to me.
Well, the media is not working for us. That's for damn sure, man. And so they're working for somebody else, and whoever they're working for does not like you nor I to be armed. Does not like my brother to be armed. Does not like my sister to be armed. Doesn't like your brother to be armed. Doesn't like none of your friends to be armed. Because if you're armed, you got one final way to say, no, I don't comply. And they don't like that. They want you to comply.
So, they being who? Are you insinuating is they?
I don't know. There's many faces and names for they. But right now, I'm going to say the power behind the media.
The power behind the media. That would be the Jewish people, wouldn't it?
Well, I'll tell you what, Dan. I noticed this during this same shooting incident and stabbing incident in Santa Barbara. The narratives came out as immediately it was a gun problem, and then the fact came out that he was also a stabber. So that they had to focus on something else, and the point came out because this kid had made a lot of these videos, and he wasn't particularly kind in these videos, and he said some fairly I don't know, things that I don't agree with and not the way I see things, but of course I'm not a 22-year-old college virgin. So, you know.
I didn't know those existed.
Well, I guess he was the last one. But, the media started spinning it as, white male culture engrossed in misogyny, due to Hollywood. And I'll tell you what, as soon as they said that, we didn't hear about it a whole lot anymore. That narrative went nowhere.
Interesting.
Because that brings scrutiny on to who's really controlling stuff. So that's all I got to say about that.
That's pretty crazy.
What was his name, Voltaire? He said, to find out who rules over you, just figure out who you cannot criticize. And I think that says it all.
Pretty crazy. It really is.
So,
I want to know about the gun show.
Area? Oh, man. This was a tiny one. It was about 200 tables. Fairly small. More yard sale crap than before. A few, I'd say the whole thing was 200 tables. I'd say 40% of them were yard sale, not firearm, not guy stuff.
And people are paying $10 to get into this gun show?
This one was $5. This one was $5 with free parking. There were a few private sales. There were a lot of dealers, and these are the guys that this is what they do: is they hit gun shows on the weekend. And you know, those dealers had fairly expansive tables full of stuff. I did see a Thompson, a Tommy gun there. Early.
Semi-automatic.
Semi-automatic. Yeah, I believe it was the one that was made by Carr. After the merger or whatever, it was one of the ones made like about maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, you know, those made by Auto Ordnance, you can actually drill a hole in the proper place on that receiver and it'll go full auto. Isn't that amazing?
I don't believe that this one was capable of that. This is the one, it was made a few years ago and not by Auto Ordnance. I believe it was made by Carr.
Yeah, I had a master gunsmith tell me about that. He said it's the craziest thing. If you drill a hole in exactly the right place, and I'm not going to mention anywhere where that would be, of course, but that's full auto.
We have such an expansive array of Thompson owners in our audience.
You're probably right.
Everybody's got one. You know, I did see a few months back that a police department in, I don't know, somewhere in South Carolina, they were near one of the tobacco companies. Somewhere in their back room, they had like 8 Thompsons from way back in the day when the city held the paychecks for the tobacco company.
That's awesome.
And, well, they were 8 Thompsons made in like 1929 or something like that. So they were, you know, select fire or whatever you want to call it, you know, class 3.
Full
auto, beautiful, just like you see in the movies. And I know for a fact that they sold those 8 Thompsons and ended up buying something like 200 M4s on it.
I was going to say they could put those things on the registry actually and sell those to citizens. Citizens could actually buy those firearms.
I think they'd have got much more money than 200 M4s would have bought, because you know they got those at government contract rates. So
I don't know, Michael. It depends. Those older guns like that, most of the time, if they're out of the police department, they will put them back on the registry and open them up to the public.
What would a transferable Thompson go for?
Good question. I'm not going to look right now. Just guessing, $25,000 to $35,000.
Wow.
Depending on who made it, and et cetera, you know.
Yeah, 1929.
And those World War II ones, especially, you know, they're awesome guns. They actually use those to try to shoot, not only to hold the enemy back, but they use those and shotguns to try to shoot grenades the enemy was throwing at them out of the air. fact. That's a fact. They tried to do that.
That's like the most deadly game of skeet ever invented.
Really? Well, it's better than it landing in your foxhole, I guess.
Yeah, I got to make choices, I guess, at that point.
And that's another thing. If anybody's got any of that old ammo, World War II ammo around, those shotgun shells are valuable as can be. They're all brass shells, I believe. They're not plastic shotgun shells or anything. They're made out of metal.
Yeah, they're not papered shells. They would have been like wax paper shells back then. I think the only people that make an entire like brass case or an entire like nickeled case would be I believe that's Tula makes Silver Bear and Golden Bear, and I believe they're only available in like 410 and 20 gauge.
Oh, okay, that's for the new stuff. I'm talking about this World War II stuff. That's what I was talking about. The collection.
Yeah, that's some big.
It's very rare stuff. Very rare. But I love anyone. If you have the money, you can own an NFA firearm or a machine gun or a suppressor, silencer. That's one thing. It's a great investment.
Well, I'll tell you what. There was a guy at the show that had a table explaining how to do trusts, and I guess I don't know if it's in your area, but
yeah, it's everywhere. You can set up a trust.
You can do a trust.
Yep. You can do a trust, and the trust can own the firearms, and you can do it that way. Trust can own them, trust can sell them, but I'd rather personally own them and sell them myself. That way, you can reap the benefits a lot easier. And but you do get put on a lot of lists. I'm sure you got to send in. What it amounts to is basically a little more than a passport application, along with your sheriff signing off saying you're a good guy. And then you go through an extensive background check. You just send that in and duplicate it to the NFA and send them $200 for a tax stamp. And once they approve you, if you've never been convicted of any serious crimes or anything, you usually get approved for those things. And so therefore you can own a machine gun in a lot of states. There's some states that don't allow that. Can you guess which ones, Michael?
One would be left coast. And one would be East Coast.
Yeah, exactly. California, no full autos there.
Yeah, and believe New York.
New York, but you know what? In New Jersey, they do allow full auto. Isn't that strange?
That whole East Coast. Sorry, Yankees. You can have it. That's not mine. I don't even want to go down that road. So at this show, the great big scam was a table full of Jimenez arms, JA9s and J380s and J22s and J25s, and Cobra Derringer pistols that were in the most gaudy spray paint colors I've ever seen. And the price was not enticing, even though, yes, that is very beautiful pink Derringer with vibrant purple grips on it in 32 long. It doesn't call me at $219.
Good Lord. Were they actually selling those things?
No, but they had a lot of people around their table because they were giving away like snacks. They were giving away little candy bars and single Reese's peanut butter cups and things like that. So, I mean, somebody's got to pay for that candy.
Yeah. So did you have your peanut guy there and?
There's the beef jerky guy was there. And of course, I bought some of the smoke ham from him because that's just good stuff. And the lady with the stinky nuts was not there, but there was two other ladies that are usually at one of the other gun shows that I go to, and they had chocolate dipped frozen cheesecake on a stick. And Dan, I did not touch that stuff, and I crossed myself and threw holy water at him and everything, and I did not eat any of their stuff except for I did get one bag of cinnamon cashews. But I did not touch any of the other crap that they had.
And you know, it's ridiculous now that these supposed gun shows are turning into flea markets, so to speak. You know, with a few guns on the side.
I'm waiting for the day I go to a show and there's the guy selling the great big roasted turkey leg.
Oh, shit.
The bigger gun show I go to, they have ice cream and snow cones and everything. So I always get like one of the sorbets from them. But I'm sitting there for like 8 hours, 10 hours. I gotta have something.
Yeah, we always order pizzas, have pizzas delivered to us at the gun show.
I usually end up staying at a hotel that's got like a complimentary breakfast, so I can have my powdered eggs and a box of Fruit Loops and maybe a cup of fountain orange juice. But I will say Drury Inn that I stayed at, and I'll plug these guys because they were very nice. Brury was the last hotel that I stayed at, and they had complimentary breakfast and dinner, which honestly saved me about $60 over the show.
Really? And dinner also, huh? What, they have a smorgasbord or something going on?
They have like hot dogs and all the hot dog fixings. And
okay, hot dogs.
They also had
no,
like
thank you.
They had meatballs and spaghetti, and they also had a baked potato bar and a salad bar. And the next night they had the hot dog bar again, you know, hot dogs and nachos and all the regular gas station food. And they had the baked potatoes, and they had like little chicken things, and the salad bar. But hey, you know, dinner costs what, $20, $10?
Oh yeah, that's a good deal. So how much was your room a night?
It was $65,
and that included 2 meals. You can't beat that.
No, you really can't. And I mean, it was $65 because that's where everybody from the show stays. So.
Well, that's another good thing too. You get to make your connections. How about now?
Oh, and they had at dinner time. You got your little card, 3 free beers.
Really?
Yep. You could have
that would be that kind of place. I like that kind of place.
They had beer, they had wine, and then they had some mixed drinks, and it was all, you know, no label stuff, but whatever, you know. Hey, 3 free beers and like a couple of hot dogs and some smackaroni and cheese with some meatballs. Yeah, I got to get up in the morning anyways. That's all I needed.
Now, at your gun shows, there's no parking lot deals going on. Is that correct in Texas?
You know what? At this last show I did, there was no parking cost, but and nothing goes on in the parking lot.
Really? Nothing at all goes on in the parking lot, huh?
No, there's the parking lots are well patrolled.
That's one thing we run into, you know, being a FFL dealer selling inside. There's more sales going on outside than inside. And if you want to, you can go make some money, buy a gun outside, bring it in, put it on the table, and flip it. And you can make some pretty decent money flipping, you know, as long as you flip enough guns, you're in good shape, you know.
Well, there's plenty of guys that do that, and you pay attention to enough boards in my area and you know, classified sites and stuff like that. You start seeing the same people over and over again, and you know, I pay attention to these things. So I go to a show, and guess what? I saw that exact pistol for sale, you know, online a week ago, and this guy's coming in now. He didn't. I don't believe he bought it, or if he did buy it, he was a fool because he's got a price $300 and it was online a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah. That's. But, I mean, that's another problem. People can pull up on their smartphones now how much they can order something for, so it's hard to make a good profit on something unless you're selling. The thing to sell now is firearms they don't produce anymore.
Well, that's very true. I was having a discussion with my buddy Skip about exactly what you were talking about, people pulling up prices on their smartphones. And I was like, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the price of Gunbroker, or do you prefer the books? And, you know, knowing that you have to spend $40 on a book every year, and, you know, who knows what goes on, you know, during the time that book was printed, because...
Book's not accurate most of the time anyway. You know?
No.
It's slanted towards the dealer, so you can use the book if you're buying firearms, but if you're selling them, you don't want to use that book. You want to use Gunbroker and find out what the fair market value actually is.
Right, and then you're going to get the complaint that Gunbroker is overpriced. Well, there's a simple way on that. You can check on Gunbroker which is sold, and you take the average of the high and you take the average of the low.
Yep, and there's not much difference in them. You can see. It used to fascinate me seeing the changes. I would do that. I would look at the history of AR-15 sales, cold AR-15s, and pre-Sandy Hook and after Sandy Hook. Is crazy.
Oh, I was seeing a CT920 go for $3,500.
$3,500, and they were going for $1,100-$1,200 on most of the boards before that. That's amazing.
Yeah. 2 weeks before, yeah. $1,200 and people will be looking at you like you were crazy. But that's supply and demand like usual, right?
Yeah, and fear mongering. But Mr. Obama has been the gun salesman of the decade, no doubt about that, or of the century, you might say. He's really he's pulled a good one. It's been good for the gun business.
Well, it makes me wonder at times, Nan. I wonder if the voices that cry the loudest for gun control actually hold stock in, say, Freedom Group or Cerberus or somebody who's bought up all the manufacturers. How much do they profit while they're crying?
That's a good point. Good point. They still are, I'm sure, and I think you hit the nail on the head there, Michael. That's what they're going to do. Is they're going to buy up everything, and then dry up everything. They'll buy it up and then dry it up. That's the way I see it.
Well, companies are moving to gun-friendly states. You've got a couple opening up in yours, right?
Yes, sure do. I can't see yet who's moving in the state, but we have also North Carolina is getting a couple of the New England area manufacturers that are moving out of there. They're coming down south where they should have been in the first place. But,
where their product is appreciated.
It's fascinating. Here Connecticut's come out with all these Black Rifle fans and all that stuff, and the home of Colts, and just above Connecticut, right on the state line, you got Springfield.
Ruger's in Southport, Connecticut. That's not that far away.
Ruger's in Connecticut. That's correct. How long before they move out of Connecticut? I wonder.
I think they should. I think they should have relocated everything to Scottsdale years ago. But hey, I'm not in charge there.
I wanted to talk about something else here for a second, Michael. It was you were saying something about the DHS has now purchased night vision.
It's night vision and thermal imaging scopes.
Yeah, the thermal imaging scopes. Wow.
Right. With night vision, also with thermal imaging. And the reason given was for feral hog control.
Feral hog control.
Right, the wild hog.
What does hog control have to do with the Department of Homeland Security?
I don't know why they would have to hunt hogs at night. They got plenty of guys sitting around doing nothing in the daytime.
Don't they sleep during the daytime? Will they only come out at night or something, or what? What's the deal with that?
You can find hogs any time of the day.
Any time of the day, huh?
Right.
So this is just an excuse they're using to purchase thermal scopes and night vision. That is incredible.
$20 million worth of them. So
I'd like to hear. We're missing Hal. I'd like to hear what Hal has to say about that right there. I'm sure he has a ton to say about that. But it's that's incredible. That's incredible. And it's the same. It's firearms always get the bad rap. I don't care what's happening. You heard about the Jack in the Box thing, where Jack in the Box asks customers to leave their guns at home or whatever. Did you hear about that, Mike?
That's right.
Well, hang on.
Another open carry display.
Yeah. Well, listen to the way the media portrayed this thing right here. I'm gonna play it just a second if I can here, and just listen to this for a second.
All right.
It's Houston. I'm Phil Archer, KPRC Local 2. Now to a developing story on Houston's northwest side where authorities are searching for the armed robbers who hit a fast food restaurant. Local 2's Phil Archer is live now at the Jack in the Box on North Shepherd and West Donovan. So, Phil, what can you tell us about this?
Well, 4 men hit this place at lunchtime today, even though it sits right next door to the Heck Center where HPD police dispatchers are housed. In spite of that, they managed to get away, but sources are telling us now that one of the suspects is in custody. A couple of Precinct 1 deputy constables got here first after one of the robbery victims ran out into the street and flagged them down.
2 deputies were down the street, completed a traffic stop.
Okay.
That's a lie. They were at Shipley's Donuts.
It was just after 12:30, the height of the lunch rush. 4 men pulled on gloves and masks in the parking lot and walked inside with guns drawn. There were 2 customers inside along with employees behind the counter.
They robbed the restaurant. They also robbed individuals of their personal belongings.
The gunman left in a black Toyota 4Runner. Within half an hour, police detained a potential suspect after making a traffic stop nearby. But so far, he hasn't been charged, and 3 others are still at large. Coming up at 5, we will introduce you to a customer who was inside, saw it about to happen outside, and he got out before the gunman went in. That's coming up at 5. Reporting live in Northwest Houston, I'm Phil Archer, KPRC Local 2.
There you go, Michael.
Well, that's not the only one, Dan. You know that happened at a Sonic, too.
But the Jack in the Box asked their customers to leave their legally carried guns at home. What about that? So that sounds like an open invitation to any criminal to go into Jack in the Box. Hey, there's no firearms going to be in that place. That's just...
It happens every time, Dan. Every time we see the gun-free zone, we see the crime rise. And you know what? Being that this happened in Texas, there's laws. And in Texas, you have to have a sign which, incidentally, is called a 30-06 sign. And what that is it's got to be a certain dimension. It's got to have certain lettering. It's got to have a certain color. It's got to have a certain border. And it's got to have an exact saying in it. And if it doesn't have that, you can carry your weapon.
Yeah, I've never seen one of those no firearms allowed signs before personally, Michael. I've heard they're on doors and stuff, but I've actually never seen one before.
It has to be, yes, there's regulations as to where it has to be placed into the visibility of it. And I'll tell you what, if anybody's interested in it, it's just called a Texas 30.06 sign. And you'll see it on Google Images. It'll come right up, and that's exactly what it has to be. If somebody just, hand scribbles, no guns allowed inside there, sorry, that doesn't cut it.
So
you've got a concealed weapons license, you do it. And I'll tell you what, even if you don't have a concealed weapons license, as long as you don't act a fool, you're not going to have any problem.
Nobody's going to know it, right? Especially
That's right.
Especially if you're just carrying something to protect yourself or someone else, like one of those little mouse guns that you're talking about. You can just go right through a club night detector or a club metal detector, so to speak, and I've done it before.
Even if you're not going to a club, you're going to Walmart. You're going to, Home Depot. You're going to Tractor Supply. You're going to your grocery store. You're going wherever. It's in your pocket. It's there for you only. You're not pulling it out and showing it to anybody. There's not going to be a problem. But I'll tell you what, if you don't have it and there is a problem, you'll definitely wish you had it.
Yes, and, I got to tell you, Michael, this while I was out walking in the woods, the first time that I haven't had a firearm in my pocket. And
Kind of felt a little naked?
I felt a little naked, but, it happened to be the first time I've ever been scared in the woods before also. Before 7 o'clock one morning, I was walking along a ridge line and bent down to tie my shoe, and I caught a blur of black out of my peripheral vision, and I looked over that way, and I saw the biggest black bear I've ever seen in my life. And that thing was looking right at me. This huge head was looking right at me. I immediately turned away from it and started walking up the trail. And I heard that thing rustle, and when I turned around, it was rustling down the mountain, thank God. That thing was as scared of me as I was of it. I've never been scared in the woods until that one moment right there.
Well, I bet you were wishing you had one of those pink and purple Cobra Derringers in 32 long at that point.
A little more than 32 long.
So it would have done it in the pinch if you had to.
This thing was so big, I would have wanted 44 Magnum minimum on it. 357 would have probably pissed it off. I'm telling you.
Then I think you made the right decision by walking away.
Well, yeah, I was never so relieved. I was never so relieved in my life. It was crazy.
Well, you didn't get any of the cell phone on that trip either.
No,
nice and out of range.
Hey, it's pretty nice to get out of cell phone and computer range for about 5 days. I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's a nice cleanser.
Yeah, it's very good. But yeah, I decided to go without a firearm, and mistake, of course. I'll never do it again.
All right. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Hey, we got to hit the 4 rules of gun safety.
Yeah, I was thinking about that. What's the first one, Michael?
Well, first one is every weapon is loaded until you visually verify that it is not. You physically inspect it, break it open, pop the magazine out, rack the slide back, throw the cylinder open. However you have to do it, pull the bolt out. Make sure that it is not loaded.
Assume that thing is loaded. That's correct. The second thing is always be aware of muzzle velocity. Muzzle direction. Be aware of the muzzle direction and which way that thing's pointed. And also know your target and what's around it and what's behind it. Because you're not going to hit it every time. And what's the 4th rule, Michael?
Dan, it's the most important. Ladies and gentlemen, keep the booger hook off the bang switch until you are ready to discharge the weapon.
That is absolutely
trigger outside the trigger guard.
That's good. That's the way it should be, and hopefully we've ingrained this in people where if they're around someone with a firearm, they'll notice when they're handling it improperly. So.
Well, I'll tell you what. At that show I went to, it was. I could make all sorts of dirty fingering jokes, but let's just say it was. It was suitable for children. Yeah, everybody I saw picked up a gun and went right to it. And it didn't matter if it was a rifle, if it was a shotgun, if it was a pistol, if it was a revolver, a semi-automatic, it didn't matter. Even the guys with the lowers, with the stripped lowers, they were putting their finger into the trigger guard hole. It's like, well, there ain't even anything there for you to grab.
That's amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's the darndest thing. People, their fingers just gravitate right towards that trigger, and that's really about the only way you can have a discharge of a firearm. Is the finger gets the trigger there. Something's got to hit that trigger to make it discharge, unless you got just a hair trigger. I do have 122 rifle.
Right.
I've got 122 rifle that you got to be careful closing the bolt on it, or it might set the trigger off. I've got the trigger set at about 2 ounces on that thing.
Yeah, but that's not something that you're going to give, and you're, someone knowledgeable about this. You know
exactly. That's right.
You keep it safe otherwise. That's not something that everybody's going to run into. But I'll tell you what, there are no accidental discharges. It's all negligence, and just don't give anybody any help in taking away my right.
That is absolutely correct. I really like that song that we have, "Buy a Gun, Buy a Gun." That's a great song that you came up with there, Michael. Who was that again? Let's give them some credit there.
That is a band called the Gitmos, Gitmos, and you can find them on YouTube and you can find them on SoundCloud, and they've got some great music. And give them a listen. There's a lot of good stuff in there. I agree with a lot of what they say. It's good music. I really enjoy it.
That's a good song. It's very appropriate. You get a gun. What, a shotgun? What?
It makes people think when they hear it, and it's not super offensive. It's I don't know. On a scale of 1 to 10, I can dance to it. Give it a 7, Bob.
That's fine, and it's a good message. And if we just get across to one person who ends up getting a firearm that ends up saving somebody's life or something like that, boy, wouldn't that be quite an accomplishment?
Dan, I'm going to be happy with somebody buying a firearm and just feeling more secure in their day-to-day life. I don't care if they save anything or anything. Just as long as it eliminates a little bit of fear, it gives them maybe a little bit of confidence. It's insurance that you can't buy.
Yep. Once you get one and learn how to shoot it.
You can buy it once, but
That's correct, Michael. But you got to learn how to use that firearm properly. You got to learn how to shoot it, hit your target. You got to be able to hit your target. That's the main thing.
And don't fall into any of the crazy caliber arguments. It's 45 or nothing.
22 is just as deadly. 22 is just as deadly as a 45 is, unless he's got armor on or something like that.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'd much rather make a hit with a 22 than miss a whole bunch with a 44.
Exactly, or a 45, or a 9mm for that matter.
Shoot what you can shoot, what feels comfortable for you, and carry it. I just hope you choose something that's serviceable and dependable. I personally go for BAD, beautiful, accurate, and dependable.
And that costs you a little money to get something like that normally, but it just costs a little more to go first class, and you're buying something for the next generation to hand down too. When you buy
well, see, they've got lasting value. They are a store of wealth. They can be used. I mean, I've traded firearms for motorcycles. I've upgraded my firearms just by making trades. Don't be selective in what you purchase.
Yep, that's pretty cool. You can trade a firearm for a motorcycle.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Pretty good gas mileage difference there too. You can ride that thing around.
I think it gets 60 miles a gallon, to be honest with you. It's got a 3-gallon tank, maybe 3.5-gallon tank, maybe a 4-gallon tank. I don't know. I've only filled it up once.
That's neat. So it runs good and everything's good?
Put the key in it. Give it a little bit of choke and hit the button and it fires right up. It's Kawasaki, so it idles kind of fast and it's kind of cold-blooded like every Kawasaki is, but
so you might be able to ride that thing. You might be able to ride that thing up to Tennessee sometime, Michael. 60 miles.
It's a 250, Dan, and I'm a big boy.
Oh, okay. 250. Okay, sorry about that. I thought you were talking about like on one of those pocket rockets or something like that. 600.
Well, it does look like a little pocket rocket. I mean, visually, you wouldn't be able to tell them apart unless you looked at the size of the opening on the exhaust, but.
Michael, thanks to Jules and everything. We're out of time. You get the last word, brother. Hey, Nick. Shout out to Nick.
That's right. Give my brother a shout out. Thank you very much, everybody.